Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. There we go. I'm your host, Musicless Runner. Every now and again, I have an issue where it just will not fire up, like music programs, and I don't actually know why. So eventually, iTunes and/or Winamp will finally fire up, and we'll have some music. But for now, you're gonna have to listen to the surly silence of my voice. Okay, I gotta share something real quick. While we're in the random news section. So this morning, I went up to say hi to my niece. I was like, "Hi, niece." And she was like, "Hi." And she was learning about squids and how they move, and nature program, right? She was pretty into it. And she said, "I'm a squid," and I said, "Well, I thought you were a kid." And she was like, "Hey, that's where I am." And apparently, it was really funny. And I'm probably the only one in the world who would find that as funny as I did, but it was really cute. Random news. The Castlevania collection on PC, Switch, and whatever else it's coming out on. I think it's Xbox and PS4 as well. So it's on everything. Has we've figured out the full totality of what's coming out on it. It's pretty disappointing. So we've got Castlevania 1, Belmont's Revenge, for some reason, and which was the GB one. And then we've got Castlevania 3 on the NES, Castlevania 4 on the SNES, and it's also being added with Castlevania Bloodlines, which is Sega, Castlevania The Adventure, that's the Game Boy one, Castlevania 2 on the NES, and Kid Dracula on the Famicom. And none of the really good Castlevania games. And yeah, I'm willing to say it that way. I mean, don't mistake me. There's plenty of content and quality in the older stuff, but I mean, where's Soten? just to name the most obvious and egregious of exceptions. Where the heck is Soten? Right? Never mind. Oh, hey, iTunes finally loaded. Yay. I'm kind of with more cowbell. I mean, Switch cartridges aren't exactly small. You can fit a lot on those. We've seen this. So there's really no reason that we couldn't also fit Shuren on it. Like, don't you agree? I don't know. Here, let's get some Morrowind music. Generic Morrowind music for you guys. I mean, we could get gotten Soten. We could have gotten Ecclesia, and I don't remember all the names, but there's like 3 or 4 DS ones that could have been on it. But no! No, instead we have, like, the NES ones, the Sega one, and there's ones, and the frickin' Game Boy ones? Anyways, good morning. Happy Easter, those of you who care. Happy Easter, those of you who don't. I mean, I'm sure even if you don't care about any religious symbolism, you certainly care about chocolate, right? You don't care about chocolate? Anyways, but who we got here this morning? More Cowbell, Cloud of the Stars, Vigilant, Platy Cordoon, and Czar, and that's about it. Nobody else is here this morning. Oh, Takoid is here. Thank you very, very much, Shuran. As ever, much appreciate those subs. Would you like to put that sub towards something? Oh, and Iffinbutt, who, by the way, I noticed your sub earlier, so thank you very, very much, Iffinbutt, for the sub. Would you like to put that towards something? And Ice Tray's here as well. Holy crap. No pun intended. Random news. 2 Point Hospital is getting a co-op mode. Am I the only one that just sounds awesome? Like, I'm a really big person who is in favor of co-op in general. I've been pushing co-op for most of my life, and I'm not even kidding. Since I was a kid, I used to love co-op games, especially since they were a lot rarer back in the NES era. Cyberpunk. I can spell. There we go. Thank you very, very much, Mega DR. As ever, much appreciated. And I have, in fact, put that towards Cyberpunk. Thank you. Oh, and Churen puts it towards The Last of Us. Oh, gotcha, Iffinbutt. Well, then you don't get to get anything. No gratitude. No, I'm kidding. I'm still thankful. Thank you. Hey, Cord. Hey, Arsky and Valerian, who usually isn't here. And Inquisitor. Sorry, I'm totally clogged this morning. I've already taken Loratadine, but I am super clogged this morning. So please, forgive me. I apologize. I'm awful. But yeah, no, I agree. Every collection is going to be measured against Mega Man. When you can put out Mega Man 1 through 11 on a collection, which is actually more than 11 games. Actually, no, it was actually Mega Man 1 through 10, sorry. That's what I was thinking, because it's actually more than 10 games. Right? Come on, Konami, you can do better than this. Well, actually, you probably can't, but, whatever. At least Capcom has been knocking it out of the park with their collections, right? I might still pick up the Castlevania collection. I haven't decided yet. The idea of having several Castlevanias I enjoy replaying on the Switch is appealing to me. But, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Anyways, hello. Who else is here? Rax. What's up, Rax? And Tizara. And Retro. Hello to everyone. And Pyman. And Tizara, who is putting that towards the pin fund, I presume. Which is good, because I don't have that document up, because I'm a moron. One moment. Pin fund. There it is. I'll never forgive you, Cord. So, there's also the arcade collection, which is coming out. That's also Konami, which has a bunch of arcade games that aren't that great, and not that many of them. So that's the second time Konami has failed at a collection thing. Just whatever. Was that a yes, Tizara? I didn't actually hear a confirmation from you. And while I wait on that confirmation, before we talk about pin news, I do have a couple other... actually, no, I guess I don't have anything else to cover in my random news. Hang on, let me check something here. Give me a moment. Yeah, by the way, guys, we are less than a week away from Endgame. How's that for fun thoughts? I will be seeing Endgame in 6 days. And hopefully getting barbecue right beforehand. No, I guess that's it. How many of you guys are seeing it within the coming week? I see Rax is seeing it. By the way, congrats on getting the tickets, Rax. Even the category you wanted. Retro's seeing it Thursday. Awesome. Arsky seeing it Thursday. Istra seeing it Saturday. Churen seeing it Saturday. I'm seeing it Saturday, obviously. Cloud is seeing it Wednesday, it looks like. Valerian has to wait. Sadness. All right, we need to spoil it for Valerian. I'm kidding. I'm Cold Farseeing Friday. Blue Wolf Alex, I hope you get in. Can't because it's sold out. Yeah, we almost ran into that problem here, Cordoon. That's why I've told that story. That's why I've been... I was checking for tickets every morning, every day for like a month. Yeah, that's probably just going to be next Loreweek, by the way. It'll be like, all right, hey guys, so let's talk about Endgame. And how they screwed it up. It's going to be another Mass Effect 3. What do you want to bet? No, I'm walking in nice and empty. No men. I know that spoilers are already out there. I know that leaks are already out there. And I am ignoring all of them. No, what I want to talk about is pins. So I actually don't want to talk about this because this is dumb. Let's just go ahead and talk about pins, shall we? I've already seen Discovery. I've already seen most of Discovery Season 2, Micromono. I have no plans to do a discussion on stream. I could. We could set aside some time to do a spoiler discussion of it. I do have thoughts about it, absolutely. Yeah, so bad news about pins. Honestly, here's the thing. So every pin, with one exception, that I can mail, I have mailed. Now, I would know what you're thinking. Well, why is that bad news? Because none of those are international. Now, I'm going to skip forward a bit and just go and give you the fast forward, the TLDR. We're not shipping to international. We're not. It's not happening. I may re-examine that in the future. I need to actually get a hold of the company who actually makes these things for options on that one. But me mailing individually things outside of the country is simply not happening as of this point. I've spent the better part of 5 weeks now trying to make international shipping work. Granted, I don't exactly have a lot of spare time, but I've been spending almost all of my spare time heading out to UPS, heading out to FedEx, heading out to the Post Service, signing forms, filling out paperwork, trying to get every invoice and every postal code and shipping code and tariff code set exactly how it should. Getting Jimmy Bailey on board. I had him actually try to ship them himself through his smuggling ring that he has that nobody's supposed to know about. Don't tell anybody about his smuggling ring. And that didn't work either. Thank you very, very much, Jimmy Bailey. Even though you failed me with the smuggler ring, I am still very much appreciative. Thank you. I assume you mean Enderall with that. Anyways, long story short, it's not happening. I thought I actually had it nailed down, and I was like, yes! And I was like, ha! And I had it sent out to Canada, which was the easiest one to get set up for, because it's literally ground shipping to Canada. And then they were returned. Oh, I don't get that money back, too. That's the fun part. Um, and I did even more looking into it and talked to a few people I know personally who do international shipping, either at their company or whatever. And lo and behold, yeah, it's not happening. It is extremely common for basically at one of the three separate stops that happens in between something going from point A to point B internationally for it to just not happen. Like, how many of you guys have ever like ordered something online and they have international shipping? Pretty much any one, I don't know if and but, pretty much any one of those given companies actually has, and this is not a joke, an actual part of their budget set aside for shipping that doesn't happen, for international shipping that is simply returned without incident. Because that money's just sunk. And it happens really regularly, I have since discovered. It is actually common for that to just happen. Now, someone in chat just mentioned, I just sent a letter off with stuff in it. Well, it doesn't always happen. But it does happen a lot. And I give up. I'm done. 5 weeks of my life trying to get these things out of this country. I give up. So, and I'm just going to eat the costs for that. I'm just going to eat the costs for the international shippings that I've already paid for. That's not part of the shipping, the PIN fund. I have removed that from the PIN fund. However, and I'm sure literally none of you saw this, but we actually have the PIN fund up on the website. So grats to those of you who actually did notice that, which is none of you. And for those of you who are curious, that is how much that now needs to be paid. Listen to me. That is how much that it cost me in order to get these pins done and out and blah, blah, blah. As you might notice, it's already, I've been keeping track. Decent amount of money has already gone towards it. So, woo. That's the pin news. No internationals. We're done. I give up. I have been bested. I am actually going to be attempting in the future something else. Like I said, I'm going to try to get a hold of the company who actually makes the things and see if we can't figure out something. But regardless, for the moment, it's not happening. So, that sucks, and I'm sorry. Moving on. What was the cost for USA shipping? It varied from about $8 to about $15. The pins themselves cost about $6.75 all told, I want to say. Something like that. I figured it out at some point. So what I want to ask you guys your opinion on Lorextant. Like, what do you think of it, basically? Oh yeah, I was going to talk about how Mortal Kombat is BS too. Nah, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. No, I've spent 5 weeks of my life on this Tazara, and I have come to conclusions and results. It is certainly possible, but random is basically the result of Tazara, and that's not happening. So, no one on Lorextant? I suppose I should get a timestamp. Sure, why not? You don't know what that is. Of course you don't. How could you? But what does some bald idiot in a suit shows up and says, hey, based on absolutely no other information, what do you think about the term Lorextant? What comes to mind? What do you think of it? What opinions do you have? What perspectives do you have? There's actually a term for this, and I actually can't remember it, but I've been doing it off and on for the better part of the last 2 weeks now. It's basically trying to get people's gut reaction to a brand term or a title. And you want to ask as many people as possible because, different people are going to have different reactions. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what it is. I mean, you've already figured it out, but what do you think of the term, the title? Because, and nobody's answering this, it's actually aggravating. Because the more I thought about it, the more the word extant makes way too much sense. It just fits so neatly and perfectly. And so I came to the obvious conclusion that in order to try and continue to utilize the term extant, I would have to basically differentiate it in some way by, adding another word to it, either prior to or last, which by definition would have to be a single syllable word, because we're already at 2 syllables for extant. It would also have to be something that smoothly ties into extant. So, if you said the Extant Chronicles, the Extant Legacy kind of works, but it doesn't actually make sense, right? And someone, I actually can't remember who, just suggested Lorextant, and I was like, actually, I think they said Extant Lore, but then I was like, Lorextant kind of works. I mean, extant lore would be lore that remains or lore that continues to exist. Whereas lore extant means all the lore that continues to exist. A very slight variation in meaning. But obviously something that actually fits a little bit better. Good morning, Aethel, Black Vial, Atlantean, Dream Whisperer. Guys, what do you think of the term lore extant, real quick? The best part is, with lore extant, you could simplify by either saying LE, which is pretty quick and simple to say, or just calling it extant. And if anybody says, wait a minute, you're taking the extant brand from the CBS thing, we can say, no, it's actually called Lorextant. It's just people shorten it to extant. I mean, you can't blame someone for calling to Star Trek Discovery Disc, right? But yes, extant can either mean to exist, the most common definition, or all that remains that still exists. Both of which fit pretty well. We could also make it lore extant, combine the E's. I haven't decided on that one yet. Which would look kind of like this. And just call it lore extant. The reason, by the way, the reason I'm going with lore extant, in addition to the definition that I mentioned, Laddie, is because it sounds better. Again, I've been testing this all week with various people, and extant lore does not roll off the tongue. Lore extant rolls off the tongue. It's like, it feels like one cohesive word, whether it is or not. Either way, this is something, I know you guys don't care, but this is something that's been very much on my mind, especially since the only thing preventing me from doing those little audio bits that I want to start doing is coming up with a name for the setting. I can't really move forward until I come up with it. So. Now, what I find funny, no one... well, that's not true. Only 2 people I've talked to, when I say, what do you think of when you think of the term extant, have said, well, the supervillain. That actually amused me. But I really like the term a lot. I like it so much that I want to use it. In fact, I probably would have straight gone with extant. Just straight extant, if not for the fact that CBS is awful. And, the end, basically. But, because it fits too perfectly. It's something that is understandable when you think about it. It makes sense. It's something... Good, Bloody. It's something that is 2 syllables. It's something that is distinct, and yet still easy to spell and easy to say. It is something that is semi-unique. You're not going to just mistake it for something else. Blah, 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 blah. I have about 50 pins left, Czar. I have a whole bag right here that I have not even opened. Not low on pins. I thought I was running out. I thought I had 2 left. But I have more. Anyways. So U.S. shipments are still going to happen. What did CBS do? You're funny. Anyways, so I think I'm going to do a little bit more market research on this one, because obviously this is not something to just jump into. But yes, for those of you not aware, this is going to be the future term for my setting, because I want to actually start doing stuff with my setting, and that means having stuff ready to go up front, right? Like I don't want to pull a Star Wars and come up with the term A New Hope after the movie's already a success, if you follow my drift. I mean, as I've said before, I've never actually called I never dubbed it the Imperium. I never named it the Imperium. Other people called it the Imperium, and it just kind of spread, and the Imperium, for many reasons, doesn't work, which is why we needed a new term. So, Lorextant, or just Extant, if you prefer. I also like how it sounds, but that's just me. And I swear it's not just because I like the letter X, because this isn't a Z, otherwise it would be Estant. Loreweek. That just sounds weird, doesn't it? But yeah, branding. That's the whole idea, branding. A fancier... Oh, there's tons of fancier words for lore. Hang on, let's look that up right now. I have a great thesaurus. I love this thesaurus. We've got erudition. We've got mythology. We've got doctrine. We've got knowledge, counsel, enlightenment, superstition. Accomplishment, acquirement, attainment, bookishness. Does it have to be fancy? No. In fact, fancy would be a bad thing overall. Because remember, it has to be something that's relatively easy to say, relatively easy to spell, and of course it needs to be something that is short in terms of syllables.
Your dedication will be rewarded.
And I'm just going to presume that's towards the pin fund. I'm just going to presume that. I'll check. Hang on, where's my thing? Yep, that is for the pin. So we're going to put that here. And then Right, I'm going to have to do this way, aren't I? There, we'll do it that way. I don't think I've mailed yours yet, but I will. Don't worry. Like I said, I have plenty. And it's easy to mail in the States. Yeah, I saw that, Retro. Extant? Extantium, no. Extant is a census...
Welcome. Pay close attention. Hopefully you'll learn something.
Is a census-designated location in Pennsylvania, apparently. And nothing else. Like, it doesn't even know what to do with the word extant. That actually sounds pretty cool, Tazara. You should totally give me a picture of that or whatever. But yeah, no, the problem, I don't want to use Tales of Dream Whisperer for the exact same reason Zara just mentioned. It's the same reason I don't want to use, like, Scrolls, or just straight Extant. And that's Tokyo Vampire. Thank you very, very much, Tokyo Vampire. As ever, much appreciate your support. So I gotta put that in 2 separate documents. Give me a second here, so... Doctrine Extant doesn't sound bad, but what does it mean? Like, what does that mean to you? Doctrine Extant. Give me your gut reaction to that. Yeah, Chronicles is absolutely not happening. Ignoring the fact that there's other issues with that, there's also the, too many syllables. An archive? Oh, you mean archive extant. Doctor extant. I love this. You Google extant, and it's all the damn show. Let's do an image search. Inquisitus? No, 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 no. Not for me. Like, if you want to go for that, go for it. Yeah, if you do an image search, it's all the show as well. Apparently Halle Berry was in the show? I haven't even heard of this thing. The show was canceled 4 years ago. Well, roughly 4 years ago. Oh, this is just page after page of pictures of the damn show that I'd never heard of. Apparently it wasn't any good. Like, I actually talked to one friend of mine who actually knew what it was, and he was just like, yeah. No, I decided early on to nix the word imperial from the branding. The harsh reality is that A, imperial is too long of a word, and B, it invokes too many connotations that are universally negative amongst most people who have heard of the term imperial. Like if I walked up to someone who knew nothing about me or the setting, and I said, "What do you think about the imperial thing?" They would automatically be inclined to think of that as a negative thing because empire. You've heard of the trope, right? Empires are evil, republics are good, or something like that. Yeah, no. Good republic, evil empire. Here it is. It's actually a trope, apparently. Yeah, lots of fiction always portray the the empire as evil, right? And with good reason, if we're being honest with ourselves. Anyways. I'm still kind of stuck on Extant. I don't think I'm going to add the E accent. Someone suggested that. Mostly because that basically just leads to issues. It's kind of like it's kind of like naming your video game Sonic the Hedgehog when it's like the 8th game in the series. It's just going to lead to issues. I know it's a bad parallel, but you know. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to actual news, stuff that people actually care about. Sue, where's my notes? Where's my notes? PS5 was announced, sort of. Now, they didn't actually give us a ton of information about the PlayStation 5. What we do know is that it is a PS4 Pro. Or, I'm saying that wrong. It is a PS4 Pro Pro. There we go. That's more accurate. And I'm not even kidding about that. In fact, I don't even mean this facetiously. In fact, I actually believe, and I mean this with total sincerity, that the PS5 probably began its existence as the PS4 Pro Pro. And someone along the line was thinking about branding and marketing and was like, you know what? Let's just call it the PS5. Let's just go ahead and call it that. Because that's going to work better. Because then people are going to think, oh, we're buying the new generation. Marketing is such a weird topic, really. But it is. It is a PS4 Pro that is slightly better. Now, it is better, and I don't mean to be too derogatory, but that is exactly what it is. If you notice, one of the things they're listing as a selling point is full backwards compatibility with the PS4, which is exactly what... It's like saying the PS4 Pro has backwards compatibility with the PS4. It's true, right? I mean, it is an accurate statement, and they are upping the hardware. They actually did some actual hardware tests, which could be completely faked. We don't know. Load times being from, I think it was 18 seconds to about 8th of a... Or, no, I'm sorry, 8/10, so 0.8 of a second, something like that. Obviously, you can play PS4 stuff. Woo! It's going to have an SSD built in. For those of you not aware, you can actually put an SSD into your PS4 now. In fact, my PS4 Pro has an SSD into it that I put in there. It is going to have Ryzen. That's going to be helpful. Ryzen CPUs are certainly nice. So basically, it's going to have better hardware in every way. I don't know how much it's going to cost. That's probably going to be one of the really important questions. How much are they going to be charging for the PS4 Pro Pro? Or the PS4 PP at this point. Yeah, I've heard the $500 rumor as well. I'd buy it. That is to say, I would believe that it's $500. I will not actually buy it. I have no interest in it. At least not until it starts becoming mandatory for my job. But what I want to know as well is how many PS4 games are going to suddenly become PS5 games. We've seen that happen before, with the PS2 to 3 and with the 3 to the 4. At the moment, everyone's saying that it's probably not going to come out until next year, which is, I mean, understandable. We'll see. I imagine they'll at least release something about this during the E3 bundle, although, if I'm not mistaken, Sony said they're not actually doing E3 this year, didn't they? Yeah, no kidding, Valerian. We'll see, I suppose. At this point, I'm just kind of like, sure. But what I wanted to talk about, the reason... okay, so yeah, it was Sony, I was right. The reason I really want to talk about this, though, is, other than the obvious marketing branding gimmick, is this a bad thing? I've said before that I honestly... Hi, Loves Disney, and hi, Mukul. I honestly believe that we've kind of plateaued when it comes to the hardware side of gaming, especially when it comes to consoles. Obviously, I've said this for some time, the PS4 and the Xbone are PCs. They are smaller, modular, slightly worse PCs that you can get without having to deal with the hassle and aggravation of either building your own or going and getting built for a prefab, right? None of this is me being PC supremacist. None of this is me trying to look down on them. They're PCs. They're putting a Ryzen CPU in it. My Switch over there has an NVIDIA GPU in it, for God's sakes. Yeah, you're right, Rax. We had this exact same conversation with the PS4. That's kind of my point. The reason I bring this up is I've heard several people being like, wow, all they're doing is upping the hardware. Too much reaction was, yeah. I mean, we've been here for a while, right? I'm not even making fun. This is just kind of where we're at right now with console gaming. You want to be able to play games without either the money or the time or the know-how or the hassle of setting up a PC. I'm with it. I understand. So go for it, But what I find myself wondering is at what point does this become like ridiculous? At what point does the gap in between quality between consoles start to shrink to the point of irrelevance? Like, I can say fairly easier that the PS4 Pro with an SSD in it, that's important, is a significant jump up in overall quality as terms of what it can do from the PS3. But from what I've already seen of the PS5, granted it's not out yet, but from what I've seen and what they've talked about, the PS5 is not a particularly big jump up from the PS4 Pro with an SSD in it. It's just going to be like, we did this, and now it's going to be like this. And when the PS5 Pro comes out, is that going to be a jump forward? We're already at the point where they're supporting real 4K, real HD, right? I mean, actually, I forget if that's the Xbone or the PS4, but it's one of the two. At some point or another, we're going to hit a weird plateau, and what worries me most of all is I don't know what the actual gaming manufacturers, that's to say the console manufacturers, are going to do at that point. Like, what are they going to do to move forward once we've reached the point where they are plateauing hard? Now, that being said, it's not like very tiny steps forward and then charging a bunch of money for it isn't exactly a thing that certain companies might have done at some point in history. But I just find myself curious, By the way, this is approaching a 4-year-old phone at this point. And it's just fine. I don't understand the need to constantly upgrade every frickin' year. Anyways, sorry. Moving on. Honestly, I would say the iPhone 5 is actually a downgrade from what I got. And I mean that sincerely. Anyways, point being, I'm with the PS4 Pro. I honestly am. I really am. I'm cool. Yes, let's do it. Awesome. I wish they would charge a little less for it. I understand why they won't. Greed is a thing, yada yada. But what I want to know is if they're going to do anything other than making it another PlayStation. Which is fine, it's worth noting. It's just that's the only thing that's curious to me. Because, if we're being completely honest, from the PS2 to the PS3 to the PS4 to the PS5 has basically just been another PlayStation. with I know you could argue that there's some variances there, like the PS2 so the PS1 to the PS2 added the ability to go online, right? The PS2 to the PS3 added the media library. The PS3 to the PS4 added, I guess, the streaming functionality. I have no idea, honestly. I'd have to think about that. But I am honestly curious if they're going to go anywhere with it, other than just, here's another PlayStation. Which, again, nothing really necessarily wrong with that. It's just, we'll see. Although, speaking of which, did you guys see that, I think it was the Switch? Hang on, I didn't even write this one down. Tencent is going to start selling a something in China. I think it was the Switch. Which, I don't even know what to think of that at this point. I mean, I think I've made my anti-Tencent mentality. Yep, nope, yep. Tencent to sell Switch consoles in China. Yep. Yeah, well, we'll just leave that topic alone. I mean, I'm actually one of those people who defends iterative progress. I am. Pokemon. Right? Each Pokemon... People say, oh, every Pokemon game is the exact same. Those people are wrong. Or exaggerative, at the least. Each Pokemon game has actually iterated on the design of previous Pokemon games. I'm fine with that, as long as you actually do iterate. Now, when it comes to Tencent, it's better to just leave it alone. Do I have the power to do anything about Tencent? No. Okay. Moving on. I agree. It's one of the reasons... I actually said this years ago when we were debating if I was going to buy a PS4. And I basically said I'm not interested in buying a PS4. Because it's just way too expensive for something that I didn't really want all that much. Now, I don't regret that purchase, and it's been good for the show, but... Yeesh. So I suppose, as ever, you guys will decide if I get a PS5. In fact, you guys decided that I got this thing, too. And, I haven't regretted that one for a second. Anyways, I don't have anything else to say about the PS5 thing. But several people actually asked me to talk about that, and here we are. I wonder how many PS4 exclusives I have at this point. I'm actually not sure. I mean, it's a decent chunk, but all of them, 100% of them have been for the show. So we'll see what they have as far as exclusives, because I've said this 1,000 times. You know what a console is to me? It's library. It doesn't matter if it's a joy console that plugs pure happiness into your brain. I don't care what games are on it. You know? And my favorite game of last year, which I still get flack for every now and again, which I just find hysterical. My favorite game of last year was God of War 4. I mean, I think the PS4 has justified its library by now. Anyways. So let's go ahead and move on topic-wise. So this is actually 2 topics in one, but I didn't really feel like making this 2 topics. So how many of you have heard of the KotOR thing? I'm just going to say that, because if you know what I'm talking about, then you'll immediately be jumping all over my face like a rabid chipmunk. It'll be terrifying, really. I'm pretty sure Cyberpunk is going to be on PC, so I think I'm cool there. So, the KotOR thing. Let me pull out the direct quote, because I actually saved the direct quote right here, specifically so I can reference it. Josh Horowitz had an interview with Kathleen Kennedy during the Star Wars celebration and asked point blank, are you developing any new projects around Knights of the Old Republic? The response was, and I quote, you know, we talk about that all the time. Yes, we are developing something to look at. Right now, I have no idea where things might fall, but we have to be careful that there is a cadence to Star Wars that doesn't feel like too much. There. Bam. Exact quote. Now, you might be thinking, Lore, why do you feel like doing the exact quote? Well, first of all, because I like to get exact information out and be as precise as I can. But second of all, because people have been going wild about this news. Just speculation all over the place. And the only thing we know is they are developing something related to KotOR. And that's it. That's the news. That's all. Even that could not necessarily... It is possible that's not true. Or at the very least, it's possible that's something that might never come to fruition. That being stated, there is an actual topic here, I swear, because, of course, it is actually logical. So let's rewind a second. I know a lot of you hate the new Star Wars stuff, and I don't blame you. No judgment here. But I do have to admit, if I was in charge of Disney, if I was in charge of Star Wars, I would have also waited on doing any KotOR stuff, but I would have always planned to. It is an undeniable fact that there's a lot of critical reception, positive critical reception around the KotOR era. Even Tor is still doing well enough, financially speaking, despite the issue, the fact that it's Tor. So it actually makes perfect sense that they would eventually go back and try to develop or continue to develop the Old Republic era. The catch is, doing it initially would probably not be a good move. You want to feel out the market first and feel out your own developers and creators and writers, etc., and try to make sure that you have a little bit of a handle on the new continuity you're pushing before you actually jump back and try to touch something well-beloved. It's the same reason why I said that them not pulling Thrawn into the AU until several years in was a good move. And I stand by that statement. I haven't even seen Rebels yet. Lol, Cord. You're not crazy, Huthor. God, dude. Don't make me... Hang on, I'm going to pull up the song right now. Right now, we're doing it. No, I'm kidding. Nobody likes that song. So, here's the catch. Here's the topic. Let's assume for a moment that you are on the board meeting, or the staff meeting, or the executive meeting, or whatever. You're one of the money people who actually makes decisions. You get to decide what they are doing with regards to the KotOR era. You don't get to decide if they're doing it. That's settled. Someone walks in and puts a gun to your head and said, "You're making something for KotOR." You're like, "Oh, God, please, no." Like, "No, you're going to make it and you're going to like it." And then they shoot you anyways. Because it's EA. But, no, what you need to do is you need to decide what they're doing. Because I've noticed something interesting in chat. This is part of marketing too. People have automatic connotations with certain words, with certain concepts, and automatic presumptions with certain things. Like, for example, and we'll just use the 3 examples we've already talked about today, when you hear a word like Imperial, you automatically assume things about it. When you hear a term like PlayStation 5, you automatically assume things about it, that it's worth the extra $600 or $500 or whatever. And when you hear the term KotOR, you automatically presume things about it, like the fact that it's going to be a game. And yet we know nothing about the fact that this is going to be a game or not. We don't know if this is going to be a show or a book or comics or a movie. We do not know anything. That's part of the point I made right at the beginning, right? So my question to you is, what do you make with it? You are being forced. You can't say no, screw you. You have to make something for... That's true, Dakota. You have to make something for KotOR in the AU. Well, that would be a show then, Baron. But yeah. See, Geludo is also presuming a game. Which, again, is a fine presumption. It's one of the options. But it is still a presumption. Because the KotOR stuff has traditionally been associated with games. And for good reason. I mean, there's the games and then there's the comics. And that's basically the KotOR era, right? And I think like 3 books? I can only think of 2. Now, of course, we know that the Game of Thrones people are still making a movie. And we know Rian Johnson is still making a movie. And by movie, I mean movies. So, where do you go with it? Darth Bane does not count as KotOR now. Darth Bane is way after KotOR. He's effectively in his own era, really. This is probably set in the AU, if we're being honest. But what kind of story, Dream Whisperer? Show? Book? Comic? Game? Movie? Game of Malix. And they're all really stupid, so it's like watching Joffrey. Like, imagine if every character in Game of Thrones was Joffrey. I would not watch that show. To be clear, I'll go and give my own answer. I would not do a game. I know that sounds strange. Again, automatic game association. But I would not open with a game. I think that it would be better to try and set up some rules, establish some continuity, feel out how people feel about something, and then pursue the possibility of doing a game. In fact, honestly, I'm leaning towards show. I've said this before. I think that their approach to kind of emphasizing shows more than anything else is actually a good one. They're starting to do it with Marvel, and they're definitely doing it with Star Wars. I mean, how many Star Wars shows do we have either current or about to happen? Like 5? Now, granted, that might be a little bit too much, but at the same time, having too many shows happening at the same time isn't really the same problem as having too many movies happen at the same time. Like, going out to the theaters to a movie is kind of a thing. Especially in, for adults who don't really have a lot of spare time in their lives. Sitting at home watching an episode after work? Oh, that's a joke. That's just... Oh, of course it'll cause some negative noise next time. But again, I stand by my statement firmly. I would not start with a KotOR game. Absolutely not. Now, I would want to eventually build up to a KotOR game. A TV also means a TV budget. Well, several people have already said this. Actually, I think that a CGI or cartoon thing would be better suited. Because, honestly, probably CGI. And I know what you're thinking. Why? Well, this is going to sound weird. It's cheaper. We're at such a weird point in history. I'm not even kidding. It is actually cheaper as of right now for an established company that already has preset models and renderers to do a CGI show than it is to do a fully animated show. It is also probably worth noting that most modern animated shows are still actually CGI, just painted in 2D. But since we already have a bit of a style going, yeah. Now, I don't know if we'd exactly continue the exact same approach of Clone Wars or Rebels, but I'd at least do something with that. And yeah, Pyman mentions it's less restrictive to animate too. What was I seeing recently? Oh, what was it? I haven't decided if I like the Clone Wars Rebel aesthetic or not. I mean, I do like it. I don't know if I love it. I don't know if I prefer it. I think they did a good job with stylizing it, though, and I mean that sincerely. It was a good move, in my opinion, to stylize it. Trying to make it look too realistic would have, A, been too expensive and time-consuming, and B, would have just aged at some point or another. Hey, Negodai, I'm sorry. If I sound angry, it's because I'm angry at myself, if that makes any sense. And at shipping. No, Cord. See, the problem is, Max Time, the money people would look at this and say, well, why would we do KotOR stuff? What's the point? We've already got a KotOR thing going, that's Tor. Why would you spend extra money when you could just keep going with the same thing that's for cheaper? Tell you what, here's the money people answer, and I do not mean this facetiously. The money people answer is to produce a KotOR mobile game. I am not kidding. It would be a lot cheaper to make. It would be hitting a market that's gargantuan and therefore has to make lots of money. And it would be riddled with garbage. Yeah, by the way, money people are stupid. No, seriously. I mean that sincerely. Money people are stupid. Anyways, so... But are they people? No, they're lizards. Elder Scrolls Blades. Yes, it is selling very well, Venters. Isn't that awesome? Isn't it great how Elder Scrolls Blades is selling well? I honestly don't understand humanity sometimes. I'm sorry. I know we have really horrible problems in history. I've studied history. I know how bad humankind can get. But there is something so personally grievous about how wasteful mobage can get. It actually injures me in a way I don't know how to actually properly explain to you guys. Anyways. Like I said, there's a question attached to this. This is actually Cord's question. Now, Cord is insane for asking this question, so he asked a tier question. The question is, you've been dropped into Star Wars. Tier 5. What do you do? And there's no other limits here because Tier 5 means, by definition, that there are no limits. That you can choose and control everything perfectly forever. It's the holodeck situation. You can slot in as someone, you could replace someone, you can make a new someone. You could be that new Jedi that's so cool and Leia just totally wants to make out with all the time. I mean... I don't know if I'd say it becomes a useless question. It is interesting to think about what you do when you have total control of the scenario. Again, the holodeck question. You know, if you did have a holodeck and you fired up Star Wars, what would you play as? It's basically what the question becomes. I'm sorry, Uthor. That's hysterical. I'm just picturing that. Chancellor Palpatine is evil. Yeah, I know. That's why I killed him. What? Yeah, I killed him in his face, and then I took over the galaxy. I mean, why not, right? Damn it. Save Samuel L. Jackson? Nah. One definition of the Force. Oh yeah, I saved my wife in the process. She's doing fine. She just had 2 baby boys, or girls, or 2 babies. One's a boy and one's a girl. We're going to raise them lovingly, and it's going to be an awesome future. You just watch. I'm going to build this new empire built on, you know, actually being a benevolent dictatorship rather than this bullcrap. I found that Tarkin guy sliced his head off. A lot of people laughed. Nobody liked him, really. Killed a bunch of other people, too. I'm not sure what I'd do in a holodeck. I mean, the obvious answer, the whole point of a holodeck is actually the idea of you can do multiple things. So, if, you know, it would be more like, what do I do first, right? Actually, I can, Huthor, yes. Because that's kind of what we had in the EU for a brief period of time, admittedly, with, you know, Leia. Hello, Colgrim. Remove the Force. Oh my gosh. And see what happens. just see what happens. I admit I would be pretty curious. It's like, alright, what happens when the Force goes away? And everything dies. Or, everything's perfectly fine. Or, everything changes completely. I mean, I don't know. We don't know. It probably doesn't help that we don't actually have, as I've said before, a cohesive definition of the Force. We have about, what, 7, 8, 20 definitions of the Force at this point? I know Huthor is over there thinking, but I don't want a cohesive Force. Well, tough. If we're going to do wide-sweeping change, we need to know what's going to happen, which means understanding what it is. Palpatine's like, huh. Well, okay. I guess I'll just take over the galaxy the normal way, then. Honestly, both are options, Venters. God, I don't even remember the Last Jedi. I remember the scene, but I don't remember... you know what I remember with the Force? Anyways. I knew it, Huthor! That just means it goes away. at that point. It becomes the Twilight Zone. There's no more Star Wars, per se. There's simply the Twilight Zone, with a different label. Now I can fire up the Star Trek fighting music. I really should just have that ready to go somewhere. Oh, that's another thing I'd do. Okay, I've got a real answer, Cord. I've got a real answer. You know what I would want to do? And I mean this sincerely. I would want to redo the prequels. I would want to basically go back and edit and adjust the prequel era, story-wise, to be the way I personally think it should be, or could be. And there'd probably be a lot of different drafts and a lot of different versions, so I can't tell you exactly what I do right now, because I'd want to fiddle with it and see how it works, but that's what I do. Alright, KotOR, let's go! Okay, sorry. Anyways. I'm a geek. I don't know if you guys knew that. That's a good question, Lycon. The question was specifically about the Knights of the Old Republic. That could have referred to the era or the games. It's worth noting KotOR doesn't just refer to the games, after all. Oh no, he gets the two-handed swing thing. Anyways, that's all I got for this. Now, this is a fun one. Some of you guys may have heard me bang on over and over and over about interface design. Just right? It's one of the most common things I bring up when it comes to game design. Now, I don't know how to pronounce that, Cord. I'm just going to be honest. You guys all know my Darth name. Darth Aod. Damn right, KotOR. Single and proud. And also awesome. Except I'm not awesome. That's the problem here. If I was awesome, I would totally be Spock. No, I'd be McCoy. Nobody likes McCoy. He's just over there being like, Rah! Aod? Yeah, it means engine of destruction. It's also a take on Aeon, but that's unrelated. So, good interface design. So, this is Civilization 6 on the Switch. Now, I'm trying to think how to properly phrase what I'm about to say. Because this is one of the best ports I've ever seen in my life. I'm not actually kidding about that. They somehow took a 4X game and said, okay, how do we put this on a console game without a mouse interface? And somehow they made this work. And this is my point, is because if you actually sit back and think about it, I mean, I like Civ 6. I wish this was Civ 5, if I'm being honest with you guys, but, you know, this is awesome. Okay, so what I really wanted to praise here is the amount of effort and time that people had to sit down and really put real thought into how to make this work. Because you can't just... A lot of people just drop a game onto a console or drop a game onto PC and just say, there you go. How many times have we complained about bad ports over my show, right? So let me just kind of give you a little idea here. So obviously, you know, the camera's simple. That's the right analog. Zooming in and out. Again, very simple. That's ZR and ZL. Very simple. Almost everything is pseudo-context sensitive. So for example, if I want to pull up all this stuff over here, I can see my current tech tree, my civ tree, my government, my religion, my great people. All of this is up and down, basically on the D-pad. Also, if I want to go look at this stuff over here, I can do that over here by doing right or left on the D-pad. And of course, simple select and go down. Or if I actually want to see the whole tree, I just go up to here and Shazam. And I can see the whole tree, or actually select stuff on the tree, depending on where I'm at. All of this probably sounds like basic stuff, but again, this isn't quite how it works on the PC. This is just someone had to think about this. And I'm picturing the meetings I'm picturing the amount of time and effort people did sitting down thinking, okay, how do we make it so people can mouse over stuff? Well, the answer is this button. The minus button removes or adds the mouse over to whatever it is you're selecting at the time to give you the exact info. Or if it's blocking the view, you can just get rid of it if you know what you want, right? You can also, just like in the original game, go ahead and say, oh, I want to go ahead and research this thing up here, which is going to shark a bajillion terms. You can do that just like in the original. You can also filter with shortcuts. We can show keys with shortcuts, and so forth and so on. Over here, of course, we've got the diplomacy stuff, the actual the victory presentation, science victory, culture victory, domination victory. All of this is navigatable. Basically, going through menus is almost always going to be L and R, and that's another good thing they did here. A lot of the same type of buttons do the same type of actions across different windows. The D-pad always selects between windows like this, and L and R always selects between overall tabs. So you're thinking, okay, big whoop, right? Well, let's actually pull this out, because we actually have a selector, which isn't even there normally. You notice I just now made it pop up. So if I specifically want to select these guys, I can do that. Or if I want to select this town, I can do that. It basically functions as the mouse. And because of the fact that it's not actually there all the time, you can basically... I don't know how to explain how smoothly this works. But for example, rather than mouse up, click, it's zoom up, make the mouse... Whoop, hang on. I'm doing it wrong. There we go. Zoom up, make the mouse happen, and then click, and then we actually have the thing. And then we can move through the menus like this. And of course, as I said, you can hit the minus to show what all this is. You can even see the specific details on what the city is producing at any given point in time. And set priorities based on what you have selected here. And then, of course, you're thinking, okay, well, how do you actually do, like, tile stuff? Well, this is how you purchase tiles. Again, same overall system. The left analog is the mouse. And then we have... Actually, I want to pull out of that completely. There we go. Let's go ahead and see the full details of the city. And you can just kind of see here. Apparently they're displeased. Oh, crap. We need more amenities. No. No. All the detailed info from the base game is actually still here, is what I'm trying to point out. There's also one other thing that I haven't really pointed out yet, and that's the Y button, which usually is kind of a shortcut for getting into a menu. So that's kind of awesome. Obviously, you can change production. Of course you can. B is universally cancel. A is universally select. So it's basically right-click and left-click, respectively. You also get to do a few other... Like, they did a few other little convenience things, like confirming combat, which can actually be toggled off, by the way. Or whether or not you want to select a specific city with regards to a trade route or whatever. Basically, I don't want to show you every little thing. Oh yeah, actually, one other thing I'll show you in just a second. But I don't want to show you every little thing. But it's very clear that a lot of time and effort was put into trying to think about how exactly to make a mouse-driven game work with a set of controls. The answer is, of course, shortcuts. I mean, that makes sense, right? That is logical. A lot of existing PC games tend to use the function keys, for example, in a similar fashion to what this game is doing with a lot of its actual buttons. But the fact that they put that thought and effort into it is, in my opinion, a good port. Now, so, how do you end your turn? Well, the funny thing is, you actually can't end your turn without doing an action. I think the base game does that, too. But if you notice in the lower right, that's our end turn thing. We don't actually have a research selected right now. So we're like, well, okay. Also, the Civpedia can be brought up with Y. So you can actually see all that stuff if you actually feel like it. Oh, and yes, of course, Sean Bean is still in this. What do I want here? There it is. You can turn on at auto turn, which I have, of course, done. My biggest concern with this by far was that it would have slow load times. But while it is obviously slower than on my PC, it's not that much slower. Which is actually kind of strange to me. Now, I did a little looking into it. Apparently, the reason for that, and you probably can't even tell, is that the graphics are substantially lower quality. This is basically Civ 6 running at minimum graphics, with a couple of noteworthy exceptions. And you know what? I'm okay with that. It still looks fine to me. I don't particularly see any issues. And the fact that I can actually play Civ 6 on my Switch, you know, I'm with it, right? And I guess that's actually all I really wanted to show you here. But it was very important to me to sit down and actually show this off on camera, to really emphasize one of the rare times when they actually spent time and effort to make a really good port. And the biggest thing they did was they paid attention to the interface. There's actually a lot of options I'm not showing you here. Hang on, let me pull this up. So, for example, you can completely turn on most of the basic stuff that's in the game, but I particularly like some of these options here, which can just, get rid of that, for example, which I'm actually going to do. Change the platform, auto cycling, up to you. Unit confirmation, you can set that to always if you want to make sure that for any action you give. You can change the size of the mini-map. You can change the size of the touch tooltip delay, because apparently you can use the touchscreen for it. I'd say apparently, I haven't actually done that. You can show the grid, you can show resources, all the usual stuff here. It's got good options. Oh, hang on, let's go ahead and confirm. It's got good options. It's got a really well-done interface. You can actually, this is also a cool thing right there. It actually shows you, on the off chance that you forget, here's what everything does. And in the menus as well. It's just there. Bam. How would they... I don't understand that question, Micromono. So I'm going to say I have no idea, because I don't know. Oh yeah, and by the way, if you're wondering, this is a huge map, which is as large as it goes, with, I think it was 12 different AIs, or excuse me, 12 different players, so me plus 11 AIs. And that's as good as it can go. Good port, a very simple but very good interface. And it is so rare that I get to praise someone for doing good interface design and for doing a good port. And I really wanted to draw attention to it. Now, several people have asked the question, does this have the DLCs? No. In fact, actually, give me a second here. Let's go ahead and get a save in. Let's just save over that. Let's just do this. To my knowledge, no, Micromono. So, it actually does show the DLC that's in here, but this is the DLC that's present. And it's all just Civ packs and, scenario packs. Basically all the stuff except for the quote-unquote actual expansions. And that is what it is absent. Now, the fact that this is here gives me hope that there are plans to go ahead and add the actual expansions to the Switch in the future. I'll buy the hell out of them if they come out. But then again, I am one person, and this is kind of a niche thing. And I don't know how well this sold. And I hope it sold well, because we need more good ports and not bad ports like we tend to get. Oh yeah, there is multiplayer if you happen to have the whatcha-fig. But that's only on the local thing. Also, all the non-expansion scenarios are here, for anybody curious. And I suppose I should show one other thing really quick. So, you've got your standard rules, you got some of the scenario rules. You can also, of course, customize it, because of course you friggin' can. Now, one of the things I actually like, though, I don't know if the PC version has this, but you can actually save specific configurations, like I just did there, and load them. And, for example, if you have, like, a default setup, but you want to vary it slightly, you could just save it as one of these and do that. I think that's a neat little option. I don't know how cool that is, but whatever. You can also set up the seeds, maps, blah, blah, blah. This is actually a standard map here, because that's just the Earth. Hang on, let me show you the other thing I was showing off. There you go. Huge. 18 city-states, 12 players, I think. Maybe that's 11 players. I don't know. I can't count. What do you want from me? You can, of course, increase the city-states if you really want to, and you're insane. Whoop. Come on. I guess it only goes to 24. Alright, whatever. And I believe you can do it on PC, so that's cool. So I guess at that point, it's basically just... You have basically all of the same options that you had on PC, which is good. Again, that's a good thing. You can also set up all the players as you can in the PC version. All that usual stuff. Long story short, I was pleasantly surprised by this. I was expecting another half-baked port that barely worked on the console. And if you're wondering, Lore, can you give me an example of that? Well, yeah, actually I can. By contrast, while this is a functional game, this is nowhere near as intuitively as designed. Oh, and consequently also has worse loading times, which I find hysterical. Yeah. Also good hard-boiled one. I want that game. Part of the reason that it bothers me so much that mobile garbage, mobage sells so well, is because it's basically that's true with KotOR. It's basically rewarding bad, right? Like, and something about that just fundamentally bothers me at a core level. It is my completely insane opinion that good things, good effort, good work should be rewarded. Should be something that, cool stuff happens as a consequence of it. And it's actually kind of rare if you think about it that something that someone put a lot of thought and effort and time into to make something good actually ends up being successful. So seeing something like Civ 6 being successful, that warms my heart a bit. Now, one thing they do right with this is they do this weird scaling graphics thing. I don't know if this is actually on the PC version or not, but basically the further out you zoom, the lower res graphics they use, so that's actually a nice little touch. But the camera is extraordinarily awkward. I don't actually know how to explain it. So, this is the right analog right here. Pretty simple. And this is the left analog. And, I don't know, it just doesn't quite fit as smoothly as it otherwise should. And it doesn't help that this tends to adjust the angle. And yeah, it also feels a little bit slow in its movement. So, functional. Again, just not great. The menus itself, again, fairly functional. So let's go ahead and let's plop down some residential here. So now this is good. You have a hotkey. This is holding Y to decide how exactly you want to paint it. You can do a selection or fill. We can just, for example, we just be like, plong. Except it's already, so we can do it like here, for example. And then, you know what? Actually, I changed my mind. I want to do like a select thing. Like I want this part here. And you can see how it's just a little bit awkward. It works, though. Again, it does work. I mean, I don't actually regret this purchase. I just haven't really had a time to sync it up. By the way, hi, Crazy Norse. But yeah, it's a little janky. This is why I'm using this as the contrast. Because there's a difference between a port, which this is, a awful port, which like FF6 was on the phone, or a great port, like Civ 6. And that's the only reason I wanted to mention it here. That being said, I still recommend the City Skylines is an awesome game. Get it on the PC or the Switch. I don't care which. Just buy it on one of them, damn it. It's a great game. Anyways. But the real best game of all time is Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, which I'm going to play for you now. No, I'm kidding. Although, actually, I do want to check something really quick while I'm here. But first, I'll go ahead and chop off the local recording.